Hey, welcome back to the channel. Let me ask you something. What do you think truly haunts a person? It's not the words they've never heard, but the silence they never saw coming. The silence that hits harder than any argument, any confrontation. They thought you'd always be there, that no matter how much they pushed you away, you'd keep fighting to prove your value. They believed your love was a safety net, something they could walk away from and pick up whenever they decided to return. But they were wrong. They walked away expecting you to chase them, to beg, to crumble under the weight of their departure. But what they didn't anticipate was your silence. And here's the thing. Silence is more powerful than they realize. When you stop explaining, when you stop begging, when you stop fighting, you take away the one thing they think they can control. Silence strips them of their power without you having to lift a finger. They expected you to lash out, to write pages of hurt, to pour your soul into explaining how they broke you. But silence leaves them with nothing but their own haunting thoughts. At first, they feel relieved, thinking it's just a phase, a temporary space between you two. They might even tell themselves you'll come crawling back, ready to apologize and beg for another chance. But here's the truth. They don't realize your silence isn't a game or a tactic. It's a choice. The moment you choose silence over explanation, that's the moment they lose the power they thought they had. Your silence doesn't stroke their ego, it crushes it. And when their ego crumbles, the truth begins to seep in. Maybe they were the ones who were weak. Maybe it wasn't you who needed them, but the other way around. Maybe they've lost someone who genuinely would have loved them, flaws and all. They thought their leaving would break you. But the silence you've chosen is slowly breaking them in ways they'll never admit. You see, silence creates doubt, and doubt is the deadliest poison to the mind. They start obsessing, scrolling through your socials, rereading old messages, replaying memories in their head. They're searching for answers to a question they don't want to face. Did they ever really know you? They wanted you to chase them because when you're chasing, they don't have to confront the weight of what they've lost. But the moment you stop chasing, they realize something they never anticipated. You're not running after them. You're moving on, replacing them. This isn't about games. It's not about seeking revenge. It's about giving them exactly what they gave you, nothing. And sometimes, nothing is the most powerful statement you can make. In today's video, I'm going to break down why your silence is hitting them harder than you think, what stages they're secretly going through, and how you can use silence not just to shift their perspective, but to rebuild your own self-worth in the process. If you've ever doubted whether your silence is having an impact, by the end of this video, you'll see why it's the strongest weapon you have. Let's dive in. Number 1. Why silence hurts more than words. Silence is the most potent weapon the human mind can't escape from. While words can be twisted, manipulated or ignored, silence pierces through every defense, forcing a person to confront the one thing they fear the most, themselves. When someone expects you to chase them, silence becomes a brutal force. They can't twist it. They can't control it. What they anticipated was anger, maybe some desperate attempts to make them see your worth. They expected long messages, hurt-filled rants, or pleading for another chance. But what they never expected was for you to offer them nothing at all, and that nothing is more painful than any word you could have said. Silence leaves them stranded in a sea of uncertainty, questioning everything they thought they knew about you and the relationship. In the beginning, they might convince themselves that you're playing a game. They'll try to justify it, thinking you're just giving them space and you'll reach out any second now. But as time stretches on and your silence lingers, darker thoughts start creeping in. What if you're really done? What if you're not waiting for them at all? What if instead you're moving on? That doubt, It's like poison seeping into their mind, one drop at a time. And the worst part is, they're the ones doing it to themselves. The Stoics understood that real power isn't about what you say, it's about what you don't say. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Silence is a lesson learned through life's many sufferings, and your silence is a lesson they never saw coming. It's showing them that you no longer suffer for someone who was never willing to suffer for you. Every time they check their phone and see nothing, every time they scroll through your socials and find zero traces of sadness or longing, it hits them harder. When they try to bait you with indirect posts or subtle messages, and you respond with nothing, that's when it really starts to sting. The silence you've chosen is a constant reminder that they no longer hold any control over you, and as that silence continues, they start to ask themselves a question they can't ignore. Did you ever really need them at all? What makes silence so devastating is that it forces them to fill in the blanks themselves, and we all know how the mind loves to imagine the worst. Maybe you're healing, maybe you're thriving, maybe you're with someone who treats you the way you deserve. The truth doesn't even matter anymore. What matters is that they're starting to realize that the person they thought would always be there isn't. They thought they broke you by walking away, but your silence is shattering the version of you that was willing to accept disrespect. Silence doesn't just change the game, it flips the entire board. You're no longer the one chasing after them, you're the one they're chasing. With no words, no arguments, and no explanation, you've already shifted the power dynamic. And here's the ultimate truth. When you walk away without a fight, that's the moment they realize they lost someone they never truly deserved. Drop this affirmation in the comments. My silence is my power. Because when you embrace the strength of silence, you gain something they can never take away. Control over your own peace. Number 2. The hidden stages they go through. Your silence is far more than a simple absence. It's an emotional storm that slowly erodes everything they thought they knew about you and the relationship. What many fail to realize is that silence doesn't destroy all at once. It works its way into their mind, piece by piece, until they're unrecognizable, battling their own insecurities without even knowing it. The first stage is denial. At first, they convince themselves it's nothing serious. They tell themselves you're just taking a break, that you're playing games to get their attention, and that it's only a matter of time before you come crawling back. Their ego whispers, they'll come around. They always do. In this stage, your silence actually feels empowering to them. They think they're in control, convinced that all they have to do is wait for you to give in and beg for one more chance. But what they don't realize is that your silence is not a temporary pause. It's the final verdict, and deep down, they know it. Then comes the stage of obsession. Days pass, then weeks. The message they thought they'd get never arrives, and suddenly they can't help themselves. They start watching you. They check your social media, obsessively looking for any sign that you're still hurt, still waiting, still longing for them. They search for an indirect post, a breakup song, a sad quote, anything that confirms you haven't really let go. But the most painful thing they find is nothing. Your silence is the harshest reminder that you're not falling apart without them. And that emptiness, it starts to gnaw at them in ways they can't even explain. Their mind can't tolerate the unknown, and when they can't read you, their imagination runs wild, conjuring up every worst-case scenario. Frustration follows. They might try to trigger you now, liking old photos, posting things designed to make you feel jealous or insecure, flaunting their life to make you think they're better off without you. But the more they try to provoke a reaction, the more your silence drives them crazy. For the first time, they are the ones who feel powerless, and it eats away at them. They never imagined a time when you wouldn't chase them, and now that it's here, they don't know how to handle it. And then the fear kicks in. They begin to panic. What if you really are moving on? What if you've already replaced them? The more time passes, the more they convince themselves that you're not playing games. They're terrified that you're actually better off without them. Your silence forces them to confront a horrible truth. They can't control this situation anymore. The more they wonder, the more their mind tortures them with possibilities, each one more painful than the last. The thought that maybe they were the weak ones all along starts to eat at them. Why would someone who truly loved them walk away so easily? Finally, the stage of regret. Every little moment they took for granted begins to play out in their mind like a movie on loop. Every time you forgave them, every time you fought for them, every time you swallowed your pride to fix what they broke, all of it comes flooding back. The longer you stay silent, the deeper their regret sinks, because now they're realizing something they couldn't see before. You were the one who truly cared, and you're gone. And no amount of pride or pretending will ever fix that. They'll never admit to anyone how much your silence is destroying them. Their pride won't let them. They'll act unbothered on the outside, while inside they're falling apart. But as time goes on, that regret will only grow heavier. The silence you've chosen is the hammer that breaks them piece by piece. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "If you wish to be strong, learn to enjoy being misunderstood." Your silence is teaching them that strength is found in letting go, in not chasing after what's already been lost. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I choose silence because I choose myself. Because when you finally embrace silence, you reclaim the power they never knew you had. Number 3, how your silence is reprogramming their mind. Your silence isn't just a void, it's an awakening. When someone walks away, they expect to see your pain wrapped around them, waiting for them to come back, eager to prove that they still matter. What they never see coming is that your silence completely shatters that expectation. It forces them to rewrite the narrative they've created about you, bit by bit, moment by moment. The longer you stay silent, the more their perception of you begins to crack. Each passing day without a response is a reminder that you're no longer the person they thought you were. At first, they thought you were someone who would always wait, someone they could leave behind and come back to when it suited them. But your silence strips away that false sense of control. Every time they check their phone, hoping for a message, every time they scroll through your social media, hoping for a sign of your longing, all they find is nothing. And that's when it hits them. Maybe you were never weak. Maybe you weren't the one chasing after them. Maybe, all this time, you were just choosing them. And now that you're silent, they're left wondering if they ever really had you at all. The human mind is programmed to search for answers to unresolved questions, and with your silence, you've opened up a floodgate of uncertainty. Did they really matter to you? Were they special, or were they just another chapter in your life? The more silence you give, the louder these questions echo in their mind. But what really eats at them isn't the silence itself. It's the fact that they'll never know the answer, and that uncertainty, it rewires their whole view of themselves. They used to think they were the prize, the one who held the power, but now they're wondering if they were simply tolerated. What they fail to see is that your silence isn't a form of punishment. It's a mirror. You're not trying to hurt them. You're simply reflecting back to them what life looks like when they're no longer in your world, when their ego isn't fed by your energy, and the longer your silence lasts, the more your absence becomes their biggest loss. As they replay old memories, revisit old messages, scroll through your pictures, every moment spent without you slowly chips away at their sense of control. They'll start convincing themselves they lost something they can never get back. Seneca once said, The greatest revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Your silence is proving just that. You're no longer the person they could manipulate, the person who needed answers, closure, or validation. You're becoming the person they always feared you could be, the person who can walk away without looking back. The power of silence lies in the fact that it traps them in their own minds. They can't argue with it. They can't block it out. They can't twist it to fit their narrative. Every moment you stay silent is one more moment where they're reprogramming themselves to understand that you always had the power. They just couldn't see it. By the time they finally reach out, hoping for a second chance, you'll already be someone they can never get access to again, the version of you that they'll never truly understand. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments right now. My silence is teaching them what my presence never could, because in the end, silence speaks volumes, and it's the lesson they'll never forget. Number 4. How to keep your silence powerful. The real challenge of silence isn't starting it, it's maintaining it when every fiber of your being wants to speak up. Your heart might scream for validation, your mind may crave closure, but the key to staying silent is remembering that your silence isn't about what you're withholding, it's about what you're becoming in the process. The moment you break your silence to prove a point, you're giving away the very power that silence is meant to build. The real strength in silence is in the transformation it fuels, not the absence of words. To keep your silence powerful, you have to let it be a season of personal growth. Silence only holds weight if you're evolving in it. This is your time to rebuild what they tried to tear down. Start taking care of your body. Start rediscovering passions you lost along the way. Start creating a version of yourself that doesn't need to explain or seek validation. Every time you choose to invest in yourself, you're telling them, I'm not coming back and I'm not waiting for you. Each time you heal a part of you they neglected, you're proving that their absence doesn't make you weaker. It unlocks new opportunities for you to grow stronger. Don't just fade away. Use that silence to transform. The most impactful silence is the one that forces them to question everything they thought they knew about you. Don't block them. Don't cut them off completely. Let them watch from the sidelines as you rise into the person they never imagined you could become without them. Let them see your glow, your success, your joy, all without hearing a single word from you. What truly breaks them isn't just your silence, it's the life you're building within it. As Zeno of Citium, the Stoic philosopher, said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we should listen more than we speak." Your silence speaks volumes, teaching them a lesson they never saw coming, that you no longer need their approval or validation. Every second you stay silent is a reminder to them that you were the prize all along, and now they have to reckon with the fact that they let you slip away. The key to keeping your silence powerful is staying focused on your own evolution. Silence becomes weak when it's used for petty revenge or to make someone regret losing you. But when that silence is used to pour energy back into yourself, it becomes a force they can't ignore. They won't regret losing you because you stayed silent. They'll regret it because the person you're becoming is someone who would never even look in their direction again. This isn't about making them miss you. It's about making yourself so whole, so unapologetically strong, that their regret fades into irrelevance. And that's the version of you they'll never have access to again. Number 5. When will they break? They'll break the moment they realize you're not waiting for them anymore. It's not when they notice your silence, but when they realize that your silence is no longer a reaction to their absence. It's a deliberate, irreversible decision. It won't happen right away. It won't hit them in the first week or even the first month. It will happen when they come to terms with the fact that the person who once begged, cried, and fought for their love is now a ghost they can no longer reach. At first, they'll tell themselves you're just playing games, trying to punish them with your silence. But silence doesn't break people overnight. It chips away at them slowly, leaving deep, lingering cracks in their perception of you. They'll find themselves scrolling through old messages at 3 a.m., searching for the person who would have dropped everything for them. They'll replay the times you begged them to stay, and the more they reflect, the more they'll wonder. How did the person who fought for them turn into someone who no longer even needs to explain themselves? They'll break when they finally understand that your silence isn't rooted in anger, bitterness, or some desperate attempt to make them jealous. It's not about posting sad quotes to provoke them or to get their attention back. It's simply this: you're gone. And the reality that someone who could have had everything with them has chosen to give them nothing at all will haunt them more than anything else ever could. Some may break within weeks, others may take months. The timing doesn't matter, because the longer they wait, the heavier their regret will grow. The longer they delay reaching out, the more they'll convince themselves that you're moving on, and that thought will eat at them from the inside out. When they finally come crawling back, what will destroy them isn't just the silence they've been met with, it's the version of you they'll be faced with. The one who doesn't need their apology anymore, the one who doesn't need closure, the one who realized that losing them wasn't a loss, but the best thing that ever happened. By the time they finally break, they'll be hoping to reach out to the person who used to drop everything for them, the one who would have picked up the phone on the first ring. But what they'll never understand is that your silence didn't just hurt them, it rebuilt you. And that version of you, they'll never have access to again. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Your silence isn't revenge, it's your evolution. They'll break when they realize your silence isn't about withholding words. It's about withholding access. No amount of regret or apology will unlock the door they've closed forever. Your silence is not punishment, it's protection. Every second you stay silent, you're breaking the toxic cycle of proving your worth to someone who was never capable of seeing it. Let them wonder, let them regret, let them feel the weight of your absence, because in the end, your silence will be the loudest message you ever send. If you're choosing your self-worth over chasing someone who never valued you, drop a comment below. I choose myself. And if you're ready to turn your silence into unstoppable power, subscribe and join me as we continue this journey of transformation. This is just the beginning of your glow-up.